The Prismatic company helps you build high-quality graphical content at scale using just text. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by MacVoices Live, our weekly live panel discussion of what is going on in the Apple space, as well as the larger tech world, and how it is impacting you. Join us live at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, or whatever time that is wherever you are, at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV, and participate in the chat, or catch the edited and segmented versions of the show on the regular MacVoices channels and feeds. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, once again, we're going to catch up with someone that we talked to at NAB this year. We had a great discussion because they were implementing or trying to implement something that was quite A, ambitious, and B, really intriguing. So I'm happy to welcome back Abe Feinberg. He is the co-founder and CEO of the Prismatic company. Abe, it's great to see you again. Thanks so much for doing this.
Chuck, great to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
No, I'm delighted because when we had the conversation at NAB, it's like, wow, okay, this is really interesting, almost a little scary in places. And it seems like since we talked, a whole lot has happened in the realm of AI and image generation and video generation and all kind of exciting things that NAB was only a few months ago, and it feels like years since then as some of this has developed. But
Absolutely, but there's not some huge new thing with generative AI or just the pace of change right now.
Yeah. Before we get into this, though, I'm going to ask you to just give us a high level for the folks who might not have seen that interview as to what you offer and sort of an intro what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give overall context, we're an early stage startup making software for creators, for media producers. But our focus really is on helping folks who want to get more out of what they've created by designing that content for scale and creating it at scale and updating it at scale. When you create something of value, we want you to be able to truly unlock that value to share it with the world. And that means being able to reach your entire audience, regardless of what platform they're on, what format the content might need to be in. And to put it bluntly, you need to be able to get paid for what you're creating at a level that you can afford to keep creating it and make more. So to do those things, you really need to be able to, again, design, create, and update your content portfolio at scale. So that's the overall context, like motivation for us as a company, and the reason why we're building our these apps and the underlying platform, which we call LightWeave. It's to be able to enable creators to make and update their content at scale.
Okay, so before we go further, define in your mind what at scale means.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like I threw that around like half a dozen times, and I don't want it to be an empty word. To us, what it means is you're creating something once in one place and you're using it many times. It means you're able to remix and reuse a piece of content in multiple context formats on multiple platforms. Today, as a creator, you might feel like you need to be on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and do social media and also publish a blog post and so on. Being able, doing content at scale means being able to do all of those things without having to do everything manually. It means being able to make a change in one place and then have that update your content everywhere. That's designing for scale, creating for scale, updating at scale, where a lot of the current tools, you can't do that. You have to just go through and sort of be a copy and paste monkey and do everything manually.
I think you just described my life.
One entire job I had, I felt like that was basically all I did.
So I'm delighted because you're right. I mean, that is kind of the way it is. Every platform, it seems, every use case has its own little idiosyncrasies that, yeah, you can kind of do it sort of, but it's always a compromise. And what it sounds like you're working on.
Technical expertise to do it. There's sort of a division between apps that are, and this isn't universal, but in general, apps that are very easy for someone to jump in and start using, but don't give you those scalable abilities, or apps that give you things where you can update more at scale, or you can do things in an automated way that take away some of the manual work, but it takes a lot of effort to learn, sort of the technical side of that media creation. And some folks are able to do that, which is awesome. And then, but a lot of creators have something to share. And it's like getting another job, or one guy I talked to at VidCon recently said it's like having to have multiple PhDs, in addition to being an expert at whatever the content, subject matter is that you are an expert at. You also then have to become, get a PhD sort of in the technical side of it, if you want to be able to do it scalably and really make money off of it and make a living and reach your audience.
So you're heading to IBC. As we record this,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be on the way. Probably by the time it comes out, you will be there. So what are you going to be showing as far as updates to what we saw at NAB? And how is that going to potentially impact my life so I'm not a cut and paste monkey anymore?
Yeah, gosh, well, there's a lot to unpack in there. Let me first go through just a very high level overview of the main apps that we're going to be demoing in our booth at IBC, and then we can dive into some of those other details or look at any of the apps in detail. So we've got 3 that people can come and see demos of. One of them is called LightWeave Charts. So this is a motion graphics app where you can really easily on your phone make professionally designed animated charts. So like bar charts, pie charts, even election seating charts from a mobile device. Just punch in your data and you get something that looks, comparable to what you would see like, during the elections on CNN or something like that. Then we have LightWeave Interactive is a mobile app for making branching videos where the viewer gets to interact with the video and decide what happens next. And the third app is called LightWeave Scribe, which is our document-based media creator. So you can do some really cool stuff in LightWeave Scribe, like document-based video editing. And I realize document-based video editing might sound a little surprising. It's a little bit of a novel approach as compared to traditional video editors. So I'd love to spend a few minutes unpacking that sometime during our call. But in terms of sort of where we are from when we talked at NAB, I'm just honestly blown away by the amount of progress that our team has made since then. It was not long ago that our company was literally just an idea, and now we have three different apps that we've got early access testers in there trying out and giving us feedback on. And what you won't directly see it at IBC, which I want to mention, is that we've also made some really good progress on the underlying engine that we need for the platform. So, for example, our team has built our own library for block-based rich text editors. So this is something that you'll see is a part of LightWeave Scribe. If you've ever used Notion, for example, that's a block-based rich text editor. We built our own library for that. We've also got a video rendering engine that we're building in-house, which is huge. So these things are honestly a huge amount of work, but the really cool thing, the reason I'm sort of going on a tangent about those, is I'm very excited that since NAB, we've actually made a huge amount of progress on those underlying components of our engine that, even though it's a lot of work, will give us, to build those things in-house, it'll give us a lot of control that we need to do the really, really cool stuff that we have as the long-term vision for the overall LightWeave platform. So the full platform, isn't something you'll see at IBC, but we've made a lot of progress and on that, and as well as these 3 apps that people can check out.
Okay, so you said you wanted to unpack the document-based editing. Let's get right to that.
Yeah,
because that was a little bit of what I got to see at NAB, and it was impressive.
So, again, like I mentioned a minute ago, it's an application for document-based media creation. So the idea is you can create videos and other content by editing a document. So in a traditional video editor, you might have a timeline and you drop clips into the timeline, and that's the main way that you interact with your video. If you're making a video in LightWeave Scribe, your central interface is instead a document. So let me see if I can paint a concrete picture of what this looks like. On the left-hand side, when you open up LightWeave Scribe, you have your document editor, and you can go in there and you can start writing ideas, creating an outline, drafting a script, inserting images and other media, very much like working with a Google Doc or Microsoft Word document. And you can apply styles to your document. So, in a traditional document, you can style something as bold or italic or as a heading. Scribe works in a similar way to that, except that you can go beyond bold and italics, and you can style something as, for example, voiceover or animated text or lower third animation. A lot of videos have a lower third animation that will come in and say who a speaker is. Or you can say this is an image, whatever style you need to apply there. And those styles determine how your content is going to be rendered. So as you're editing your document on the left in the document editor, on the right-hand side, Scribe is simultaneously creating your video, not using generative AI, but using these styles. So you can hit play at any time, and you can watch what you've made up to that point. And it's also generating a storyboard for you underneath the video preview. So you can use that storyboard to see, your whole video laid out at a glance, and also communicate very efficiently. If you're working with a team of other people, you can communicate with them the vision for what you're creating if they're making some of the components of that. So I'll pause there. That's the overall vision. One thing that I could dive into in more detail is, kind of why. First of all, I want to see if you have any questions there, but we can also talk about, why did we choose that approach? What is it about document-based editing that is different, or gives you some features that traditional timeline-based editing does not? That's something that we might want to get into.
Well, so we've talked about creation and editing, and so I am going to ask. Yeah. Let's see. How should I say this? So we're already seeing things from ChatGPT and all the others that, if I tell it I want a baseball player on a field, holding a fish, that, it'll give me something. And then I can say, okay, I want the fish to be a dolphin, and I want the baseball player to have his cap on backward. And it can make those kind of adjustments. Is that similar to what we're talking about with your tool?
So I think what you're asking to a large extent is kind of a question we get a lot, which is, so is it Gen AI? Is that a fair encapsulation?
Well, sort of, I guess, because I hesitate to use that term because, first of all, it's a little bit inflammatory at the moment, but more importantly, I want to make sure that we don't necessarily set an expectation, positive or negative, with that term. So the scenario I just tried to describe to you is that the conceptually the way I would work with your tool?
Not exactly. So let me unpack a little bit. Maybe I can hit really quick just on sort of, tackle the Gen AI elephant in the room, and then kind of contrast that with how Scribe works. So, to be clear, I love Gen AI. I use it every day for different things in my work and creative process. So there will be roles for generative AI in our applications. But there are also issues with Gen AI, and it needs to be, our philosophy is that AI needs to be inserted in the right kind of structure so that you are really supporting the creative individual in the direction that they are choosing to go. They're the director of the creative vision, and they're just pulling on the AI as one of the tools, as opposed to just sort of mindlessly saying, hey, I'm going to pour magic AI sauce on this and it's going to give me this thing, and hopefully it's what I want, and maybe it rips somebody off, right? Provenance of the content, giving credit to somebody for the work that they do is also something that's really important to us. So there's all those issues, but it is an amazing tool. It will have a role in our products where it helps the creator in a responsible way that feeds into their creative vision. But the core functionality of LightWeave Scribe is not generative AI. It's really the core architecture is this design that's built around, again, you're editing with a document where you have a style to say how your content is rendered, and you can use those styles to even define how the content is going to be rendered for different target platforms, for example. And none of that requires generative AI. I should probably dive into a little bit of kind of what that document editing aspect, the kinds of things that it allows you to do that don't require generative AI, I think that might help. But that's, really the experience is more, it's more analogous to like editing a web page, where you have, if you open a web page, there's HTML code, there's an HTML document that defines the web page. If you change something in the document, it updates the web page. It's the same kind of idea here, and gives people the same kind of power to make really cool, scalable changes, automated changes. But the one distinction I'll put is that it doesn't require the sort of technical knowledge of how to write HTML markup, for example. But yeah, I think probably I need to clarify a little bit about how does document-based editing give you any of these abilities in a way that's different from what AI does.
Okay, because what you just said about the HTML document underneath the web page makes perfect sense, and that's where again we sort of come back to. Well, maybe give me an example of the kind of a simple project that I might create, and then use the text-based editing on, as opposed to the query that I just tried to conjure up that probably maybe took us down a wrong path.
Well, to be clear, I think to get a little bit more directly back to your question about, can you type in a thing and say, give me a picture of a cat, right? Generative AI does that. Will we have integrations where you can use generative AI to insert something like that into your video? Sure. That's one of the tools, just like you can pull on a stock media library and say, hey, give me a picture of a cat. You also should be able to pull on, generative AI and say, hey, give me a picture of a cat. As long as it's done responsibly with provenance of the content and all that. But that's just one of the tools that's in this style-based document editing. So, sorry, let me back up for a second and just sort of highlight some of the things that are powerful about document-based editing to begin with. So, like if you're just in a regular Word document, suppose that you have a document with thousands of headings in the document, and it's just some really long manuscript or something, and you one day decide, I would like all of my headings to be blue. You don't have to use AI to do that. That's a scalable change that you can do using the power of styles and document-based editing. You just go into one place where your heading style is defined, and you change the color there, and instantly your entire document will be updated. So that's the kind of power that we want to give people with Scribe, but instead of just styling headings, you're using that same power to create and update, all of the components of your video or other media, but in a similar sort of way. So, for example, to get around to, you said, what's a simple example? I mentioned a lower third earlier. A lot of videos have a lower third animation that slides onto the screen that says, oh, this is Abe Feinberg from the Prismatic company. You might want that lower third to have a particular look, for your brand, for your channel. And a lot of folks will make that in a motion graphics app, for example, and can be quite time consuming. The idea is with Scribe, you could have that all defined as a style. It's just my lower third style, and I just write Abe Feinberg, the Prismatic company, and I apply that style, and it will just instantly be rendered in that way in my video. So I don't know. Let me pause there and see if that helps.
I think it helps. What it sounds like is, what I took from that is that it is, I have to prep the work, and then I'm picking it out of this is my visual of a library, and type in add lower third, and the lower third would pop in, and then add name, company, etc., and then it would appear. So is that a correct?
So the overall way that you interact with this is, like I said, very much like you're in a Word document and you just say, highlight some text, bold. And if you just want sort of, or highlight text, heading one style. If you just want, the defaults, that's going to come with defaults. So you're going to have all these styles that you can apply that have default things. The default heading is such and such font size in your document, and black, and all of these different formats that come predefined. So the idea is the same with Scribe, that you have these things where just as easily as, highlighting your text and applying a style, you have a whole set of common things that you might want to do that apply a style. You then also have the ability to dive in and customize them. So you're not forced to create everything, create all of your styles, and even look at or consider really styles beyond what you would do. People writing a document don't usually think about, well, exactly how is, it creating italic, or how is it, what point size is my heading? They don't think about that. But then some folks do. And if you do, those features are there and you can dive into it. That's a big thing we believe in, is as if you don't want to mess with that and you're a beginner, you should be able to dive in and just make a thing with the defaults and just style, write your text, hit some hotkeys, or, click a few UI options to add the styles you want, and you're done. But if you want the more advanced options, you want to be able to customize it, say, to look like your particular brand, that you can go in and do that, and you can edit those styles and make your own custom styles, which will take a little bit of setup time, but then you've got them and you can just apply them, across your entire library very easily. So I don't know if that answered your question, or if I went off on a tangent.
No, I think that definitely helps. So I guess what are you going to be showing at IBC from the standpoint of what we're talking about here? What's new, and are you closer to a shipping product that you're ready to ship, or are we still in the development phase?
Right. So with all three apps, we have a prototype people can try out and get in, and we're absolutely taking early, signups for early access to test it and give us feedback. It's really important to us to get input from people. With LightWeave Scribe particularly, because I think you were more probably asking about that. This is to be clear, this is a prototype. So you're going to be able to have things like, have animated text come on the screen, or have change colors and put images and insert video clips and things like this. But some of the more advanced features and sort of the large library of different styles and those kinds of things are features that we'll be building out over time, if that makes sense. So initial functionality is in some ways a proof of concept and to test out our underlying engine that we're building. So you won't be able to do the most sort of advanced, flashy things, but you will be able to do things like, for example, have something come on the screen, an image, text, a voiceover. We have AI voiceover working if you want to use that. And you can have that applied to, 20, 30, 50, 100 different blocks of text that you've put in your document. And if you go in and you change the style, you just instantly see everything change in your document and in the preview immediately. So again, just to give a simple example, if you've got, a title coming on to your video with some text, you can go in and you can change that, and you'll see everything instantly update. If you say, hey, I don't want to use this AI voice, I want to render a different one or generate a different one, you can, go ahead and change the style. And because that style is applied in all of these different places, you can immediately see it start to regenerate that voice. So the thing I think that we're most trying to sort of show off is this underlying concept of change something in one place and see it update everywhere. And of course, the initial things that you can change and update and put in your video are more limited compared to what we are going to be adding, because we have a very expansive, vision that you can create almost any kind of video using this interface. But of course, it's a prototype, so we won't have all of those different styles and features built out for the show.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like so many things that we're seeing here. It's sometimes we don't have an analog to draw from because it's so completely new that we need to see it in action, and then we need to go back and think about, okay, how can this apply to my workflows and what I do? And I keep going back to the NAB interview, and I would encourage folks. I'll have a link in the show notes to go to that to help give you a basis for what I saw. But it was pretty darn impressive to be able to describe something and then have your software create it, and then make those changes. And with some of what you're talking about, I mean, right away I flash to what I do and think, wow, I could do this and I could do that. And when it needs to be updated, it could be updated automatically, might be not the best word, but across the board. How's that?
No, exactly. And I mean, one of the features I didn't highlight yet that we're working on is the idea that you can define what we call targets in LightWeave Scribe. So let's say that you want to be creating, a video for YouTube and TikTok and for some social media stuff and a blog all at the same time. The idea is that you go in and you say, here are the target platforms or formats that I've got for the content I'm making. And rather than, in the typical approach of like, well, I made it once, and now I have to sort of manually edit everything to, change the aspect ratio or, copy and paste this thing to over there. The idea is that you work with the styles to say, okay, on this particular target platform, if I've got my lower third style, for example, on this particular platform, it might stretch this width, but the style is going to then have have behaviors associated with it that say, but if I'm on this other, vertical format, let's say, I'm going to shift the text around and make it fit in that format. So the idea would be, even when you're creating it, you're able to simultaneously be creating it for multiple target platforms at the same time, rather than having to create, separately. But then also when you update, if you say, hey, I want to go in and, I made a typo in that person's name in my lower third. Let's just use a simple example. You can fix that. And, it is really automatic in some sense that you fix it in the one place and you click a button and it's going to be re-exporting, republishing, your content. That's the vision.
I love it. Go fix it. Go finish it for me, please. So,
no, I mean, it's something that we're really excited about because very truly, this came from me and my original co-founder David, and we were then joined by our third co-founder Matt. But originally, David and I worked as creators ourselves. This is how we met, was at a content creation company. So, in a lot of ways, we are building exactly the tool that solves the sort of pain that we have felt as creators, and if it can help, even a fraction of those same problems for other folks, that's just super motivating for us. It's a good reason to get out of bed in the morning.
So I want to make sure I touch on this too, because you said that there are these models available that people can play with. Is that open? Is it a sign up to a beta program, or are they, freely available? How are you handling that if people are interested in it?
Absolutely. The best way is to go to prismatic.org. So prismatic.org, our website, and we've got sign-up links there. Just takes you to a Google form, and you just say, hey, this is me, and here's the apps that I'm interested in trying out. And then someone on our very small team, there's about a dozen of us right now, one of us will see that and get you added in to test out the app as soon as we kind of have the next batch of testers going in. And we absolutely, I mean, that is honestly the biggest thing. Reason to go to the show is not to sort of sell people on anything, but just say, hey, we think we're making something that will help you as a creator, as a media producer. But are we? So it's a huge plus for us to get more folks in there and giving us feedback on what, this feature is amazing, and okay, nope, this one doesn't really work quite how I want it to or need it to for my workflow. But yeah, sorry, to answer your question, simplest, most straightforward thing is just go to the website, submit that form, and we'll get you signed up.
And so I can set everybody's expectations, yours and theirs. What kind of hardware is necessary to run something like what you would give them access to?
Yeah, absolutely. So to be clear, because I don't think we mentioned this, currently LightWeave Charts, the motion graphics charts app, that one is for mobile, for Android or iPhone. LightWeave Interactive, the interactive video editor, is also mobile, also for both Android and iPhone. LightWeave Scribe, we're starting off on desktop because it's very writing heavy. It's a document editor, so that seemed like the most logical place, so people can be using their laptop. But no, you don't need any particularly special hardware for any of it. Just those are the platforms, the devices that it currently works on. We're going to be continuing to expand that, and our vision is to build as for mobile and for desktop, wherever that makes any sense in terms of the creative workflow, to be able to use these apps from both sides. But no, there's no particularly advanced or special whiz bang GPU processor that you need. If you have a modern computer or phone, you should be in good shape.
Okay, so that I'm going to add in one other question, because that makes me wonder. And forgive me if I'm using terms that we typically associate with AI right now. But how much of this is on device? How much of this is being funneled to your servers to do what I assume is heavy lifting?
Yeah. So for now, the short-term solution to that is different from the long-term. So for example, right now we are doing some things on device with LightWeave Scribe that in the longer term will be pushed off to more of a cloud solution. And that's when I mentioned, by the way, that we're working on sort of the LightWeave platform. When I say platform, that's a lot of what we have still need to build out, is sort of things like the back end side of this, the cloud support for these kinds of things. So for now, some of the stuff is happening on device that may change in the future to have some of those things happening in the cloud. If that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's sort of where I was going with the question of what hardware is necessary. Right. And of course, if you're doing things off device, then you really don't have to have much in the way of serious hardware up front. But if you're doing it more on device, there may be situations that the hardware needs to be more powerful. But that's
like the speed at which LightWeave Scribe is going to render your video may vary based on your machine. But I have it running on a somewhat older Mac laptop, MacBook here, and it for the sort of the features of the prototype, I haven't seen any issues, with that. So I didn't mean to imply you don't need any, you can use a 10-year-old, 15-year-old machine necessarily. I have, we haven't thoroughly tested all the edge cases, but you don't need sort of the latest, bazillion, gigabytes of processing power, or the top GPU that you would need for like high-end gaming or anything like that. Yeah. And certainly as we build out more advanced, more computationally intensive features, I think that is where we are going to be moving those things, into the cloud most likely, so that we don't put that burden on the device. Because one of the things that is really important to us, and I think we talked about this a little bit when we talked about pricing at NAB, is accessibility of our apps. The whole underlying motivation for this is that there's, we believe everybody has something of value to share, but that value is often locked up, because they don't have the tools, or they don't have the time, or, they can't make the scalable updates they need to. So certainly one of the key things as we build this out that's really important to us is not sort of limiting, like, that you have to be on a narrow set of high-end devices to make these things work. That's a really important thing to us, that, everyone should be able to, everyone who wants to use these, who would benefit from using these tools, we want to get these tools into your hands, so that you can share, what you have to share with the world.
I'm anxious to see it as it develops, and I hope you'll come back and share more with us as we go, because I think it's very exciting what you're trying to do across in a lot of different areas that has the potential to add so much more capability to all of us. So
I would absolutely love to come back. Our team is we just are so lucky to have a team of really world-class developers and designers, and so they blow me away with how much they get done in just a few months. So I'd love to come back in a few months or something along those lines and share what's new.
That sounds great. Abe, thanks so much. Great to see you, and I'll look forward to seeing what's next.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks for having me on.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. I hope you get something out of this. This one is one of those that I want you to think. I want you kind of to see what's coming down the road at you, as opposed to what you can just reach out and touch or what's been out for a while. So if you have the interest, go to the Prismatic Company's website, sign up, wait for one of Abe's teams to get back to you, and then play with it. And please let me know. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.